hearts and spirits. Let us pray. Eternal Creator, ever-loving Lord, the great presence who is the source of all order, balance, symmetry, and magnificence. We take time to listen to the whispers of spirit, that from this space we may co-create with the ultimate and move from an opportunistic existence to a committed life of eulogy virtues, not resume virtues. We first give thanks for the next breath we are about to take, and for the beating of our hearts, and that we are aware that we are aware, and appreciative of our existence. We need Thee in our teaching and in our learning, because moral failure is most often due to an inadequate ideal, and moral education is impossible without the habitual vision of greatness. Surround us with people who are sober and critical, who do not fail to love and who do not fall in love with their own ideas too quickly. Save us from self-indulgence and excessive self-glorification. Grant that we will live a summoned life, a life of service to a vocation, a felt necessity to engage in tasks that transcend a lifetime. May we compensate for the brevity of life by throwing ourselves into an historic commitment to something big, certain, and searching. Give us, we beseech Thee, the courage to be affirming of another person's right to believe and obey their own conscience, whether it is on a football field or in the Supreme Court of the land. Deepen our understanding that for each to be truly free, we must all honor and respect the responsible freedom of all persons. Teach us that refusing to take things personally is to avoid many upsets in life, and that the willingness to lay all blame aside and accept total responsibility for everything in life is the way out of hell. Recognizing that our humanity is the doorway to our divinity, inspire in us, dear Lord, the patience for how hard we have to work on the long road to actualizing virtue ethics. With your help, we are all growing into the knowledge that we are not here to be liked, but to be ourselves unapologetically. Believing that this is your divine right path to living a truly liberated and authentic life, we all say, now, so be it, and so it is. Amen.
folks coming in here. Good morning. Good morning. We see still a number of brothers coming in, but because the schedule is tight, I'm going to press on because we don't want to push up too closely to the noon hour. Good morning again, brothers. My responsibility is not only to exercise the 3 B's, which is to be brief, brother, but to give you the occasion. And as I think about this moment, I'm taken back to a book written in 1979 by a brilliant scholar named Chancellor William, who wrote a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And in that book, in addition to a number of things he did that we as a people who continue to struggle for our liberation need to become familiar with, in addition to all those items, he pointed out the importance of what is called the warrior class of any people. It's clear when reading this book that that warrior class is you. That the best and brightest of any society, those who are not just brilliant and ascending to wisdom, are also not cumbered by marriage and children, but have the luxury to reach and fight and scratch to bring about the ambitions of the people to fruition, the warrior class, that's you. What Chancellor Williams says is that every people who's committed to their own survival train up that warrior class to fight on their behalf. That's you. Today, this moment is about not only recognizing that you are that warrior class for our people, but it is also a moment where we recognize the leaders of that warrior class in our Student Government Association. And as we ask them today to take their oath of office, we do so understanding that they step into a long legacy of making it happen, not just for you students, but for our people. That as they commit to you, they commit to our historic struggle. The second thing I think about as I think about this occasion is the speaker. And now it's not my responsibility to introduce the speaker, but I am compelled to say something. And the 2 things that come to mind about our speaker is not only do I consider him a cherished friend, but I consider him to be wise. And that wisdom leads me to think about, one, an African proverbs. You kind of know that I like African proverbs. And there's an African proverb that says, fools speak, and listen to wisdom. We're wise people. We're not foolish. We're going today listen to wisdom from one of our own, from one of our best, who holds a classroom not just in the formal setting, but who views very clearly the classroom to be the entire campus. And so we're not going to be foolish. We're going to be wise and we're going to listen. The second thing about that, as I take my seat, is the wisest person in my life was my grandfather, Grandpa Lawson, who said to me all the time, he said, make sure in life that people speak more about you than you speak about yourself. That was his way of always telling me to be humble. Not only are we going to hear today from a wise person, we're going to hear from a humble man. With that being our occasion, I say ashe.
Good morning. If I can have all of our elected and appointed SGA leaders please stand. Hall councils as well. Please stand. Hall councils as well. Okay. I would like for you to repeat after me. I state your name as a duly elected or appointed. State your position of the student body of Morehouse College. Do swear that I will faithfully fulfill the duties of this office as provided in the Student Government Association Constitution and its bylaws. I will strive to establish representative government, maintain academic freedom, and defend student rights. I will work toward the strengthening of the cooperation between the student body, faculty, staff, and administration. While serving this academic year, I plan to better my leadership skills and improve my academic standing. With these thoughts in mind, I shall set as my final goal awareness for the betterment of Morehouse College. I so affirm. You may be seated.
Ain't. A moment of transparency. Each time that I am given the opportunity to come in front of you all, no matter how much I try to hide it, I panic, just a little. I panic because I realize the importance of these moments. I realize the responsibility that we have. I realize that the fate of the college is in our hands, that we have the power to change things, the power to save a life, and we have the chance to leave a lasting legacy on this institution. With this, I realize that we, as student leaders, have an obligation to speak truth and to do so unapologetically. Yet and still, I stand at this podium and I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I may offend someone. I'm afraid that I may say the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. Afraid that my words may be too overbearing and that they will contradict our obtuse love for tradition. But quite honestly, I'm afraid that I may fail you as a leader. But if I don't tell the truth, because I am afraid, what type of leader would I be? As I seize this moment, on the year of the college's 150th anniversary, I'm going to be transparent. This means that at this moment, we can be vulnerable, honest, open, critical, true to each other, but most importantly, true to ourselves. Because we have a responsibility to act in moments of truth. We have a responsibility to hold one another accountable in moments of truth. And today, I have a responsibility to lead in this moment of truth. So number one, there is a moment of truth in knowledge, which means that as Morehouse students, we must become more conscious. We must dare to know more, and consequently, we must dare to do more. Meaning that we must look at where we stood in history, where we are now, and focus on where we must go. We must do this not for us, but for the sake of the people who will come after. Because if we really loved Morehouse, we would rise to each occasion to open our minds to tell all the worlds, that we have come to know and to those worlds that we have yet to discover. Number two, in these moments of truth, we must realize the truth in our ideals. Our affiliation with this institution goes far beyond just a name or title. It is about what we do to honor it. It's a lot bigger than just getting a degree or wearing paraphernalia. It's about sincerely dedicating yourself to something so much bigger than you. It's about living a life of purpose, concentrating on the communities that need us most. It must be everything that we do, everything that we say, and everything that we touch. That is the sacrifice we have made in joining this family. Number three, we cannot discuss truth unless we bring awareness to the truth in pride. As black men in America, historically, it has not been acceptable for us to be proud. But America is mistaken. We must be proud. And as a student of Morehouse College, we must make a clear distinction between pride and hubris. It's not about being better than our brothers. It's about being the best you that you can be. In our 150th year, it's not about being better than Clark, Spelman, and not even Harvard. It's about being the best Morehouse that we can be. It's about being the best people that we can be. That means we must always be willing to learn, we must always be willing to transform, and we must always be willing to evolve while remembering our traditions. And lastly, we must never forget the truth in our commitments. It is our duty to remember our role in the community, to be the voice for the voiceless, to be the hope for the hopeless, and to serve all our communities properly. Our commitment to the legacy of the college is not just about attending this institution, but about carrying the torch that those before us have passed down. In this moment of transparency, we all know that we will be met with moments where we can either grow or be complacent. We will be met with moments that seem almost impossible for us to bear. And we may even think that we have to give up. But I say to you now, you must not give up. You cannot give up. Howard Thurman states, over the heads of all her students, Morehouse holds a crown that she challenges them to grow tall enough to wear. First, we must realize that there is not just one crown or one mold that you must fit into, but there is a crown that was especially made just for you. It was molded and crafted just for you. When Howard Thurman spoke about this crown that is placed far above our heads, he understood that we would never reach it. He understood that it was our role to spend our entire lives trying to obtain this crown. Meaning that no matter how long we may live, we should never reach a level of complacency. And if you do, at that moment that you decide to become complacent, you are tarnishing everything that we have worked for. You are shaming the people that have brought you here. But most substantially, you are abandoning every one of those brothers who prayed to be in your shoes, who dreamed to be in your shoes. Now I ask of you this, that we never forget the commitment that we have pledged our lives to, and we never forget dear old Morehouse. Thank you. Thank you. So, Dane Booker, he gave me a few announcements to make before I exit the stage. So I'll just try to make them as brief as possible. But everybody listen up, because they're regarding homecoming. I know we had a lot of questions and concerns, especially on Twitter about homecoming, so we could listen up now. All right. So, homecoming announcements. Special thanks to Casa and Pulse of Spelman College, as well as of both Offices of Student Life. Oh, clap it up for Casa and Pulse. For planning a wonderful homecoming week for us to all enjoy. Sunday, October 15th, 2017, kickoff jam will be at Spelman Oval at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's free. You have food, fun, people will be strolling, and giveaways. All right. Monday, the fashion show will occur. The theme is elegance, presented by Ford at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel. Doors open at 7 p.m., and the show will begin at 8 p.m. Tickets are $10. Tuesday, the R&B concert featuring Jacquees. Doors will open. It will be in the King's International Chapel. The doors will open at 6 p.m., and the show will begin at 7 p.m. That is free. All right. I'm just a messenger, all right? I'm just a messenger. Wednesday, Hump Wednesday, day party hosted by Terrence J. Music starts at 3 p.m. and ends at 6:45 p.m. It will be in B-Lot parking lot. There will be vendors, food trucks, live music, DJ battle, and special guests, and more. The hip-hop concert, right? Yeah. The hip-hop concert will be in Forbes Arena featuring Travis Scott and friends. It's good. Hosted by Fly Guy DC and DJ Tone. Doors will open at 6:30 p.m. and the show will begin at 8 p.m. That's on Wednesday, after Hump Wednesday. So Thursday, Thursday, the homecoming pep rally and game day in King's International Chapel. It will start at 12 p.m. and end at 1 p.m. Featuring Morehouse College student athletes, the House of Funk Band, Mahogany in Motion, Cheertron, journalism and sports program, homecoming swag, and they will also have homecoming swag giveaways. Friday, the coronation and the coronation ball will take place. Doors will open at 7 p.m. and coronation will begin at 8 p.m. The ball begins at 9. Tickets are $15 beforehand and $30 at the door. Yeah, I'm shocked. It's wild. Saturday, the AUC homecoming parade will be at 9 a.m. Will start at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. starting on Westview Drive and ending on Fair Street. The student tailgate will be from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Join the CASA Senior Class Council and the international students for music and fun. It's a free event. Okay, all right. So the AUC Penahelic Greek Step Show will be that night at 6 p.m. in Forbes. Doors open at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the show begins at 7 p.m. The tickets are $20 in advance and $30 at the door. All right. The ticket package for everything is $55. Yeah, and on a serious note, do not drink and drive. Y'all have to be safe over this time period. Well, please welcome to the stage our musical selection by Mr. Nigel Lassiter, got you, and Miss Jasmine Walton, accompanied by a pianist.
There will be mountains that I will have to climb, and there will be battles that I will have to fight. But victory or defeat, it's up to me to decide. How can I expect to win if I never try? I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Never said there wouldn't be trials, never said I wouldn't fall, never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back was against the wall and it seemed no hope was gone, I lift my hand up to the sky, say help me to be strong. Oh, I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
We are very clear, you are the children of the people of Africa, without question. You are the people who suffered through the Ma'afa and through the horrible triangular European enslavement. Now, linguistically, I never referred to it as the African slave trade, no. European slave trade, yes. Be very clear. The trade that prompted, created, and gave grist for the mill of the development of African American culture and the diaspora was a European trade. That was not an African trade. Yes, I know that many of you will say, well, this is mitigated by the fact that some of the African kings and queens themselves engaged. No, no, no. Those are not equivalent. You can talk about that in class with me later. But be very clear, this is the foundation upon which you build your very existence. What I want to focus in, how is it that we are still here? So we were transported We were landed, or as Malcolm's famous statement is, what? Wonderful. And so the idea is to focus in on what we syncretically did to our oppression in light of our cultures and all of the vestiges we brought with us. I am invested in the idea that we maintain certain African ideologies, whether or not they're material or spiritual. But the beautiful thing is this, though. We get here confused for the most part. It's similar to the experience that an infant has at birth. You could recall this, but let's take other people's experiences, many of which you have observed. The idea that a child is born never, ever having been touched before in their lives. Just think for a minute. Never, ever having been touched before. Never, ever having had light shine upon them before. This is one of the most traumatic things that could happen. Many historians tried to give some sense of this in the belly of these ships. We were stored there, chattel beings. And when we emerge, a new reality. But I am here to tell you, from that reality, we have a beautiful culture. Oftentimes, when we were dismayed by the cultural and social structures that had been forced upon us, we had many responses. But the greatest response, and I agree with our brother W.E.B. Du Bois, the spirituals. Now, many of you who've read Du Bois know that he referred to them as sorrow songs. I beg to differ with regard to sorrow. These were absolutely the most high-spirited songs imaginable. Just think about it for a moment. You've been enslaved. You have no earthly idea where you are. And from the deep recesses of your heart, sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long, long way. But then another brother and a sister said, hold up, that ain't it, because my heart is so overwhelmed by the conditions of enslavement. And they said to them, I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm tossed in this wide world alone. No hope have I for tomorrow. I've started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I am tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I heard of a city and that college called Morehouse. I started to make it my home. This grounds your very understanding of what did they do. We had to figure out how to make sense of the tragedy of enslavement. You don't go over it. You don't go around it. You go through it. There's no way to get over it. Anyone who suggests it's time to get over it, it's absolutely impossible. One has to live through trauma. The trauma never leaves you. It becomes a part of your DNA, it is argued by some. It is you. Your responsibility is, how do I live in light of the trauma? What do I do? I can become debilitated by it. I can push forward and create a reality for myself that is of my own making. So when the question is posed, who are you? You have to self-create. Some of you will decide to do this through the networks of religious structures. Some of you will take humanistic structures and try to provide for yourselves. One of the greatest instruments we have intellectually is the tradition of the Stoics. They invested in the very fiber of what it meant to be a human being. The great disappointment for a Stoic was not death. Death was not the fear. The fear was not actualizing who one is. Become who you are supposed to be. Now, the interesting thing about it is who you're supposed to be is an open-ended issue. It has not been resolved. Who you will be, who you might be, is an open-ended concern. It depends on whether or not you decide, you determine the structure, the nature of how you will die. Oh, death is inevitable. You have to make the decision now. Will I live toward death, not fearing it? See, the problem becomes we become debilitated by this overwhelming focus on what will it be like to die. Well, the interesting thing is you will not experience your death. We will. So it would behoove you, focus on living. Figure out what it would mean to be a certain type of human being that demonstrates the integrity and love and the respect and the care for those who are and are not like you. So it becomes our responsibility here at Morehouse to do something different. Why is that? There is not a school in the world like Morehouse. That does not put down any other school. We are predominantly African peoples. We are predominantly considered ourselves to be an institution that develops male human agents. Now just pause for a second. My students know what I mean by that. We're not talking about manhood here. Manhood will differ depending on the particular context you land in the world. But what we do know, we are male human agents. We are human, we are male. But most importantly here is the notion of what it means to be an agent. That notion of an agent represents your freedom to determine the type of human you become. Now, if you subscribe to the notion of man, it might be predicated on a European notion. It might be predicated on a Yoruba notion. It might be predicated on the Kosa. I have no idea. But one thing you cannot deny, you are a male human agent. What do you do here? You have to resolve for yourself, irrespective of the social infringements on your ability to make a choice. Because the point here is society will infringe upon your ability to make the best decision at every given point in your life. But the beauty of this is your admission of that. Hans Georg Gadamer, one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century, expert in hermeneutics, he absolutely clarifies this issue for us. We're all prejudiced. But that's not the problem. The problem is your assumption of pure objectivity, as if you make determinations without contextualizing the social, political, economic, and gender-based notions that you operate under. See, the first thing is for you to admit your shortcomings and then operate in light of those and try to undermine the destructive elements in that construction. So I'm a man. I would be considered a heterosexual male with privileges that women, particularly my daughter, does not have. It is not merely for me to describe reality, but to somehow forge a different reality predicated on normative values of what ought to be the case. Should she be given the rights and privileges that I am given without saying a word? When I walk into a room, I know people expect something of me that they would never expect of my daughter. I'm ascribed intelligence they will never ascribe to a black woman. That's very unique. Black women have a very particular place in our history. They've suffered and then picked you up after you've caused the suffering. So what do? This isn't a moment of romanticizing the history of black people. No, we have contradictions. But again, as I told you, you embrace your contradictions. Live within the contradiction. The point is never to repeat the same era over and over. This should not be a perennial completion, right? The idea is never for you to say, well, I did it yesterday, I'll do it again tomorrow. We have to learn how to die well. That's where we're going. Death is inevitable. Take that out of the equation. How will you live? So your responsibility now is, in light of my privileges, and I know immediately someone's thinking, well, I'm not privileged like a white man. That very well may be true. But the privileges I'm talking about are the ones afforded you by the very seat you sit in and oftentimes disrespect. This is holy place. This is an absolutely holy place. If this entire building were to vanish before our very eyes and you still sat in front of me, you're sitting in holy space. The brick and mortar doesn't define the holiness of this place. It's the people who sacrificed. I'll give you an example. My brothers who attended school with me have done well and they live well. And the beautiful bond of our brotherhood at Morehouse says that if I were arrested, I could call my brother Ronald Sullivan, professor of law at Harvard, and say, dude, I need to get out. If I were to have a problem, a spiritual problem, if you may, I would call my dear brother Derek Rice and cry on his shoulder. If I were having some difficulty trying to find a place to live, do you all understand? I could call my dear brother Lewis Douglas over here, who's a former judge in New Orleans. You all need to understand what it means to be a part of this fraternity. You must understand this. This is going to forge the very notion of who you are. At this very moment in your life, you have the opportunity to allow your experiences here to help forge a sense of who you are and the values you will develop. Is it the sine qua non? Of course not. There's many other things that we can do. There are many other ways for us to develop. But this here, this place, gets it going. And so for me, as a student here at Morehouse College, having grown up here in Atlanta, 1 mile from campus, oftentimes walking to school, I realized when I came here, something was going to happen to me that would help me forge a new sense of who I was every day. So what does Paul say? I die daily. That's the road we want. You must die daily. What does that mean, dying daily? The old habits must die. You cannot wallow in the mediocrity. You become excellent. Mediocrity hates excellence. So the next time you hear somebody say, well, dude, you really are talking a lot about yourself. No. I'm exercising. What are you exercising? I'm trying to demonstrate to the world that when I decide to do something, I will consider myself the best at it. No one can compete with me. Now, I'm not telling you to be obnoxious. That's not the point. But how dare you apply to graduate school with the possibility of saying, I might not be the best candidate. I think there are other people out there who might be just as good as I am, but would you let me in? That makes no sense. You have to put yourself in a position where you believe no one could do it better. No one. Well, whether or not this is a reality will be demonstrated. But you must believe in yourselves this way. So that's who you are. The last point was your purpose. Your purpose is to somehow live a life that's going to represent the virtues of courage, demonstration of integrity, and respect for others, even those who are not like you. So all of your brothers and sisters who do not consider themselves heterosexual, stop normalizing the way you walk and talk in the world and open up to the possibility that everybody could be wrong. Everyone can be wrong. The beauty of being in college is you are trying to figure things out. How dare you undermine someone else's ability to do this? So the issue isn't, well, they're not like me, they're not from where I'm from. A brother and a sister has enough troubles facing them, walking around the city of Atlanta, than to come back home and have you dump on them too. That's not what we do here. So what do we want to do? The purpose? You make sure that what you learn can somehow demonstrate your care, not just for your classmates, but for the people here in the West End. See, a lot of you all do this travel abroad, and I've often said this to students. You travel abroad and could probably name every street in Paris. Rue Pierre, whatever, right? But the problem is this, though. You know nothing of Mississippi. Nothing of Mississippi. The absolute poorest state in our union. When was the last time you went to Bronx, the poorest area in the United States? And what I'm trying to demonstrate for you is it doesn't mean that you don't travel. But the problem is, how dare you travel before you know who you are? You pick up the habits of the other. Come back to Morehouse and act as if, as Frantz Fanon would say, you're different now. I understand the world in ways you don't. The world you need to understand is the world that swirls in your head first. You need to understand who you are, your place. So as you know, Frantz Fanon does a beautiful job of psychoanalytically analyzing how it is that colonization has created the type of thing we are. Now, one quote I love to always use is Fanon refers to the fact that the black man seeks to be the white man, and the white man seeks to be human. Now, the interesting thing is you will end up under that rubric, under that calculus, imitating the imitation that seeks to do the thing you're supposed to do yourself, and that is to become human. So you run from your fundamental responsibility of cultivating and refining what it means to be a human and seek something else. Now, we can create a metaphor here. How many of you aspire to be this sort of ideological notion of whiteness? This is what Fanon is critiquing, the very idea of whiteness. Now, this does not create an environment where every person who is non-African is evil, is bad. No, there's an ideological structure that permeates our society. So the next time you go and try to get a bank loan, the ideological structure of white supremacy denies you the loan. Oh yeah, and it was a black man who did it. See, that's participation in the oppression. That person has already been told, this is how you view that candidate. So when you're stopped by the police and that person might be black, your assumption is, oh, I got a brother. No. Be very clear. The structures, the ideological structures have already forged your identity. They've already determined what your value is or the lack thereof. So when a brother or sister comes, be very clear. Hopefully, they will be human, but don't expect it. I don't expect it of anyone. Being human cannot be reduced to your biological, chemical, physiological makeup. You must live a particular way and live humanely. You must live a life of virtue and respect for others. You must always think to yourself, I am not in the world alone, that my life is not my own. Your parents have sent you here, and I'm sure, as that my mother told me, do not leave this house and embarrass me. Now, that's a very ironic statement. You're thinking, you mean wrong pronoun. No. You do not embarrass me. And the me is not very personal for her. That's everyone in our family. And that's the way we feel about Morehouse College as well. So your purpose is always to maintain the highest level of integrity and dignity in and out of Morehouse. I gave you the list of my friends just to demonstrate that wherever I go in this country, I know I have my brothers, and they have me. I want you all to begin to understand what it means to be in this hallowed place. Invest not just in yourselves, but in the possibility of others. You must be encouraged daily to live along these lines. There is no easy way to get across that stage at Morehouse graduation, but I guarantee you it's worth it. I hope to see all of you there, but if you don't, you're not a failure. See, at the end of the day, as I tell my daughters when they go to school, if you close your eyes at night saying, I've done the very best I can, there is no conversation to be had. The problem is when you close your eyes at night, you know you haven't. You know you got an A and didn't deserve it. I mean, this is interesting. I think I've said it before. If a teacher gives you a grade that you think is not representative of your output, you go to that teacher's office. I don't know why this happened. How did this happen? This isn't fair. All right? Flip it. You get an A and you know you didn't deserve it. Do you go to the office and say you don't deserve it? Whoa, where's the consistency here, right? I mean, the idea is this isn't fair. I didn't study. I guessed the answers. You shouldn't give me this A. It's undeserved. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is to thine own self be true. At the end of the day, the grade says very little about who you are as a human being. Focus on yourselves. So, it is time for us to close. I'm cutting this short because we must sing Dear Old Morehouse, and you must get credit for having attended Crown Forum. And the last thing is we're acknowledging the presence of Spelman's, SGA, and the maroon and white court. If you all can raise your hands, everybody standing there, they can't see you.
Right over left.
I'm just gonna make it. Sorry. That's all right. I'll go hide in there. Dear old Morehouse, dear old Morehouse, we have pledged our lives to thee, and will ever, yea, forever, give ourselves in loyalty, true forever, to old Morehouse may we be, so to bind each son the other into ties more brotherly. Holy Spirit, make us